Now we review the 2024 film, A Giant Turd. I mean, The Strangers, Chapter 1. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I am Richard, this is Random Street Theater, and I have seen The Strangers, Chapter 1, which was indeed a rather large piece of fecal material. Yes, before I get any further, let me remind you that for every 1,000 subscribers I get, I do purchase one of these bracelets from 4Ocean. 4Ocean pulls a pound of trash out of the ocean every time I do that. If you'd like a cleaner world, comment, like, and subscribe. Now, The Strangers, Chapter 1. Let me premise this by saying I am aware of the Strangers franchise. I have never seen one of the movies. Fix my collar. And, does it need, no, it's good on this side. And being as I have never seen one of these movies, I can't say this is a rehash of a previous movie because I have never seen the previous movies. Alright? So, you start with a couple. No, you start with some guy running through the woods and he gets killed. And I guess that's your hook scene. It's an effective hook scene and it has something to do with the plot later, but not very much. And then your movie starts, and this couple comes up. They're on some kind of a road trip. They have some car trouble, and they wind up having to rent an Airbnb somewhere out in the woods, not far from a town full of people who are essentially Ezekiel from Cabin in the Woods. I mean, these people look like they're already dead. The makeup on them, it's like you dress them up to be a bunch of corpses. Yes. Really, this is very confusing because as far as we know, this is not an entire town full of psychopaths, but maybe it is. I don't know. It's never said. So they get to the Airbnb and three Jason Voorhees knockoffs wearing not nearly as cool masks start stalking them. And when I say Jason Voorhees knockoffs, I mean Jason Voorhees knockoffs. These things are running around with knives. They can teleport. They are indestructible. And, just when you think you've killed one, you haven't scratched. And I mean, I kind of understood that this movie had a villain that was indestructible through plot armor. Because it is a prequel to another horror movie. And I was aware from the trailers of that other horror movie that there were 3 killers. So when there's only 3 of them, you kind of, they show up in the next movie, so not a lot of stakes going on here. And, yeah, look, here's the thing about this movie, is it's just a very, very generic horror movie using characters from another film, and those characters are just boring as heck. You don't care about the killers, their story. You don't get any kind of a reveal or any kind of understanding. It's not nearly as haunting as I'm told the original film was. And, just in all reality, they're here, they're doing their thing, and it's not scary because you're not being brought into it. You're not feeling what these characters are feeling. The camera work is abysmal. It's like, there's this one scene where, the victim chick asks a question, and there should have been a setup shot to that where you were like, oh, wait a minute, hey, that doesn't look right. But there's no setup shot to that. You get that later. So you don't have the pregnant moment of realizing, oh, it's not what you think it is. You don't have that moment. And it's like there's this one bizarre scene where there's, dripping blood, and you're like, okay, how did that get there? They didn't notice? Like, what? Was that just suddenly put there while they were standing there already? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And one of the things about that is like, yeah, okay, it's a scary scene, but they're just, there isn't a lot of setup to it, and it doesn't make sense. It's one of those kinds of concepts where it's like, okay, you've got something going on here, but there's no body to it. It's there, and that's all it is. It's like if you saw a singular scene from a horror movie, but it was hastily put together, it wouldn't scare you. And, I mean, one of the things about this particular movie is that where it is, much like the Jason Voorhees franchise, much like Friday the 13th, this film did not cost a lot to make. I think it was somewhere around $8 million. And, when you examine that, it's gotten at least $5 million back in the box office. I think it needs to hit at least $16 million, preferably around $20 million for this to blossom into another movie. But let's be honest here, it's not an expensive property, and I don't know if there was a lot of marketing that went into it. So this movie is designed to be a cheap, run-of-the-mill horror movie for people to, be like, oh, well, I haven't seen that one yet. Or maybe they enjoy it because they like the other films, and they just want to see it continued. I mean, it's running, I think, a 5.2 on IMDb, and I noticed that The Strangers Play at Night also, I believe, is a 5.2, whereas I think the original is running a 7. Horror movies do not tend to do better than an 8. Just so you'll know, not a lot of people like horror movies, so yeah, they don't tend to get as high ratings as other films. And even then, I think, one of the highest rated films in the world is a 9.5. Everybody dislikes some film, and this rating system is an amalgam. So yeah, one of the things you see with Strangers Play at Night is it was hastily put together, shot on the cheap, and it's just, boring. It is the epitome of boring. It's not, by definition, a terrible film. It is what it is, a bad horror movie. It's not the so good it's bad kind of horror movie. It's just, bad. So it belongs in the lower half of your watch list, somewhere, around, well, I mean, if you've seen almost every other movie in theaters, this is one to see in theaters. If it's Halloween and you need a horror movie and this is available, you can watch this. Or maybe you want to have a Strangers marathon because that's the 2 films you want to see and you got to complete the set. This is not a film to go looking for. This is not a film that you should look forward to. It is just a film that exists to fill a void. And unless you have that void in your heart, you will not enjoy this film. But that is just my opinion. And I'd love to hear yours down in the comments below. I, of course, am Richard. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Barry, the official strawberry poison dart frog of Random Street Theater. And I am here to remind you, of course, that for every 1,000 subscribers Random Street Theater gets, they buy one of these bracelets I'm wearing as a necklace. These bracelets are from the company 4Ocean, and for every one of them that's purchased, a pound of trash is removed from the ocean. Why should you care? Because the world is full of trash, and you shouldn't be part of that. We should all take responsibility, do our part for the environment, and make my home much cleaner. In addition, Random Street Theater has paid for more than 100 trees to be planted. Comment, like, and subscribe. Support a better world for you and a better world for me. I'm Barry.